coming up on the month out mark for Battlefield 6 and its launch, so soon we'll be able to play everything and check it out for ourselves, see what's on offer. But today, I want to take a bit of time to discuss the weaponry here, what we've seen, what's still potentially on deck, and the leaked weapons list that we have right now from not only data mines from ages ago, but also the publicly playable side from labs that is much more indicative of the launch version of the game. So drop your thoughts as we go along, drop a like if you guys enjoy the video, and make sure to subscribe to stay up to date with all things Battlefield 6 as we gear up for a very, very busy fall here, covering multiple game launches here on the channel, so I'd love to have in the community. But for now, let's get into it. So firstly, the information about the most recent listing for weaponry comes from Bob Network UK, a predominantly Call of Duty leaker, but who's been playing the labs testing in the last couple of weeks and was like, oh well, let's post everything. Now, links are down below if you'd like to see this stuff in particular, because as always with leaks, I unfortunately cannot put the videos and or images on screen for copyright reasoning, but where applicable, I'll have links down below. Let's talk about these weapons here. Let's just run down this listing. What was seen in the recent builds of the game include the assault rifles of the M433, the B36A4, the SOR556 Mark II, the AK4D, the TR7, Cord 6P67, NVO228E, and the L85A3. Your carbines are the M4A1, M277, AK205, M417A2, QBZ192, and the SG553R. SMGs, you have the SGX, PW5A3, PW7A2, UMG40, USG90, KV9, SCW10, and the SL9. LMGs, you have the L110, the DRS IAR, the RPKM, the M12 3K, the M250, and the KTS 100 Mark 8. DMRs, you have the M39 EMR, LMR27, SVK 8.6, and the SVDM, with your snipers then following of the M2010 ESR, SV98, and the PSR. Your shotguns for your primaries, rounding these out, are the 18.5 KSK and the M1014, while your secondaries include the P18, the ES 5.7, the M45A1, the M44, and the GGH20. So 42 weapons minus launchers were included with this. Notably, a lot of these do have fictional names, whether for licensing reasons, legal reasons, we don't quite know, but there's plenty that, if you look at the menus, if you see these actually in game, you'd find them rather apparent to what their actual counterparts are. And you saw some of those already in the beta, even like that as well. So like the MPX was the SGX, the Ace-32 was the NVO228, your PW7A2 is your MP7, the USG90 was that P90, the KV9 was that Chris Vector. So there's a lot of stuff here that will end up having those fictional names, but 42 weapons minus launch included in this listing. Notably, Temporal a couple of months ago leaked a list of weapons that included 52 weapons. However, it should be noted that those, again, did not include launchers or anything, so it seems like we're still 10 back or so from what that originally included. So what's the deal with that? Where do those 10 weapons come into play? Will we see those at launch? Well, it's very possible we won't know until launch, but it's quite possible those remaining 10 are for post-launch. One thing to consider with game dev is that things are always a few steps ahead from where we see them publicly. DLC is a great way to look at it in its simplest of forms. Dev teams don't start working on DLC 1 after the launch of the game. Oftentimes, they're working on those at the same time, and usually around like 2 months or so in advance on where the public build is. So theoretically, if there was an additional content drop in November or December, we'd have teams well into working on that right now and not just post-launch. So it's quite possible that we could see these 10 other weapons being for Season 1, Season 2, included in that fuller list that was found in the game files, but with maybe not necessarily complete assets associated with it, just mentions in the game files of those weapons for the future. Now, where does this compare to prior Battlefield titles? Like, is this a lot by comparison? Not so much. Well, it's actually kind of right in the middle. 2042, you only had 22 weapons at launch, and sure, you had more portal weaponry, but for the base game offering as our focus, only 22 came in 2042. Battlefield 5 had 30 primary weapons, 7 secondaries, 9 melees, for a total of 46. Battlefield 1 had 21 primaries and 18 sidearms, if my memory serves me correctly, so 39 there. Hardline had 56 weapons at launch, if I'm not mistaken, and then Battlefield 4 had an absurd 83 weapons at launch, 64 of those were primary weapons. So while 42 is a solid number and potentially even a little more if we end up getting a few before Season 1 or these are added to the launch, it is something that's still a solid amount of weaponry, but isn't necessarily something that exceeds the highest we've seen in the last 10 years worth of Battlefield games. It's about right on average for where we'd see like a middle of the pack with the quantity here. So you're going to have a lot to play around with and seemingly a lot to end up working towards as well. Not only ranking up through your weapons to unlock attachments as you go along, as we saw with prior games and of course the beta as well, but you're also going to have camos. Some of those that ended up leaking where out of the last Battlefield Labs build, it was data mined that there apparently are 49 different weapon camos. These all look incredibly grounded, lots of woodland and digital camos, a few hexagonal and pattern camos, but truly nothing that's like, oh, that's really out there. I don't quite like that. What these unlock criteria are, if there's any sort of mastery grind associated with it, nothing is specified on that front just yet, and likely won't be until much closer to launch. But we do know that we'll have a lot of those to work towards as well, which is definitely nice. And we've talked about it before. One cool thing that I'm actually kind of looking forward to with this is the player-controlled inspect animations coming in Battlefield 6, whereas a lot of games will be able to have that sort of standard inspect animation where it's just one tracked motion that is predetermined. Instead, with Battlefield 6, you can actually kind of control that yourself, deciding how long it stays up in the air, what angle you have it at, how far over in front of you versus vertical it is, and things like that. So a cool little piece of functionality that for many people probably is not going to be that big a deal, but for me, as somebody that likes to use weapon inspects for thumbnails, as you see here on the channel, I'm looking forward to that. But anyways, the only other thing that we can talk about, I think, in regards to weapons in particular is the open versus closed weapon classes. That debate and the nature of how the gunplay will work. This has already been specified and confirmed for launch, but we'll be seeing both open and closed weapon classes once again. We saw this first announced before the beta. We saw how it is going to work at launch in the beta, where, while not confirmed to what extent, it has been mentioned we'll see it continuing that rotation of closed weapon playlists, whereas the default in the majority of the playlists will end up being open weapon classes. That's something that if your team closed weapons, unfortunately, you'll likely only have a bit of those at a time to jump into. Based off of what we saw in the beta, I wouldn't be surprised if we end up seeing like a weekly rotation or something like that of modes that end up having closed weapon playlists associated with it. But it seems like the vast majority of those modes, if there's like 7 to 10 playlists, I'd wager that probably 2 of them will be closed playlists. But if you are wanting to jump in a more controlled environment of that, of course, you can jump into Portal. As mentioned, that's one of the things that is explicitly called out in all of their marketing of Portal, is how you can have things with modifiers like closed weapons, hardcore modes, things like that. So you'll be able to set up your own closed weapon rotations, and I'd imagine that with Portal, it's going to be a consistently popular thing to have these, so you'll see those probably atop the server listings at any point during the year, which is definitely nice. You'll be able to find a match that will play exactly how you want it with those closed weapons, and with it being a named modifier, that's going to allow for that one-to-one progression in Portal as well. So you don't have to play those official matchmaking rule sets if you don't want to, and you can still progress all the same as if it were to be an official matchmaking system. So definitely nice. But anyways, that is the weaponry that we've seen here leak as of recently, and a couple of things you should also know about that now leading into the launch here. Of course, as we get closer to launch, I'm expecting a lot more information to come out in regards to weapons in particular, weapon progression, overall progression, camos and how those operate, a lot more things with Portal, breaking it down further. So there's a lot that we're likely going to see over the course of the next 3 to 4 weeks here leading into the launch of Battlefield 6. But for now, just wanted to fill you guys in on a little bit more information here that we haven't quite yet talked about. For now, that's going to wrap it up. Drop your thoughts down below. What are you guys liking out of this list of weapons or anything associated with it? Is there any weapon in particular you're looking forward to get your hands on? Whatever the case, drop your thoughts. If you guys enjoyed the video, you found it out on insightful, do me a favor and drop a like on it. And if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Battlefield 6 and everything else leading up to that and beyond. But for now, thanks so much for watching. My name is Espresso. I'll see you later. Take care and peace.